With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has decided to establish cooperatives specialized in the rental of all types of agricultural equipment to farmers in order to increase the productivity of the national agricultural sector. Algeria and Indonesia have signed a memorandum of understanding with the aim to study and develop cooperation opportunities in the phosphate sector. The Palestinian Non-Governmental Organizations Network has condemned the incursion carried out today by the Israeli occupying forces into UNRWA headquarters in occupied East Jerusalem. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Smani. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has received the Minister of Interior of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Highness Prince Abdulaziz bin Saud bin Nayef ibn al-Abdulaziz al-Saud. He then held an expanded meeting with His Royal Highness and his accompanying delegation. The meeting was also attended by the Director of the Presidential Cabinet, Boualem, and the Minister of the Interior, Local Authorities and Transport, Said Sayoud. President Abdelmajid Tebboune has chaired a working meeting devoted to agricultural mechanization, during which he decided to establish cooperatives specialized in the rental of all types of agricultural equipment to farmers in order to expand cultivated land and increase the productivity of the national agricultural sector. The statement from the Presidency of the Republic indicated that the decision follows the resolutions and recommendations of the last Council of Ministers meeting. The same sources added that during the meeting, President Tebboune also decided to create a National Council for Agricultural Mechanization. The Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense and Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, General Said Shingriha, has attended the opening ceremony of the 9th edition of the Doha International Maritime Defense Exhibition and Conference. The details with Mohammed Khatil.
According to a statement released by the Ministry of National Defense, the opening ceremony of this major international event was overseen by His Highness, the Emir of the State of Qatar. Following the ceremony, General Shingriha, accompanied by his delegation, visited several exhibition booths where he received detailed briefings on displayed equipment and materials, including advanced weapons and high-tech weapon systems. During his visit, General Shingriha met with His Excellency Sheikh Saud bin Abdurrahman Al Thani, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of State for Defense Affairs of the State of Qatar, to whom he expressed his sincere thanks for the warm welcome and hospitality. The meeting also centered on the state of military cooperation between the two armed forces, which, according to the statement, is witnessing significant momentum under the two countries' leaderships. For his part, Sheikh Saud bin Abdurrahman Al Thani highlighted the high level of military cooperation between Algeria and Qatar. General Shingriha also held a meeting with Lieutenant General Jassim bin Mohammed Al Manai, Chief of Staff of the Qatari Armed Forces. On this occasion, General Shingriha praised the strong growth and remarkable momentum characterizing Algerian-Qatari relations in recent years. In turn, the Chief of Staff of the Qatari Armed Forces commended the quality of bilateral military cooperation and expressed his sincere gratitude to General Shingriha for accepting the invitation.
Now, the Algerian phosphate mining company Somifos, a subsidiary of the Sonaram Group, has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Indonesian company Pupuk with the aim to study and develop cooperation opportunities in the phosphate sector. The document was signed by Somifos CEO Mukhtar Lakhal and Pupuk Indonesia CEO Rahmat Pribadi, under the supervision of the Minister of State, Minister of Hydrocarbons and Mines, Mohammed Arqab, in the presence of the Secretary of State to the Minister of Hydrocarbons and Mines in charge of mines, Karima Bakir Tafer, and the Indonesian Ambassador to Algeria. The agreement aims to establish a framework for cooperation and partnership between the two parties to study and develop cooperation opportunities in the phosphate sector, particularly by assessing the possibility of supplying the Indonesian company Pupuk with Algerian phosphate, as well as exploring joint investment opportunities in phosphate mining and processing activities in Algeria and developing projects related to phosphate derivatives. Now, Mr. Arqab is representing the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, tomorrow Wednesday in Jamina at the opening of the International Exhibition for Mines, Quarries and Hydrocarbons, Simica Chad 2026. More with Mariam Barshi.
According to a statement issued today at the Ministry, Algeria will participate as guest of honor at the exhibition to share its expertise, experience and vision in the development of extractive industries, thereby strengthening the African dimension and South-South cooperation and contributing to efforts to make the mining sector a strategic contributor to sustainable economic and social development on the African continent. The Minister of State will also participate in a high-level symposium entitled Extractive Industries for Sustainable Economic and Social Development, What Strategy for African Countries. Mr. Arqab, who is heading an important delegation, will also hold a series of bilateral meetings with a number of ministers and heads of Chadian and international companies participating in the forum, particularly those active in the fields of energy, mining and industry, to discuss prospects for cooperation, promote investment opportunities and exchange experiences. It should be noted that the Simica Chad 2026 exhibition is one of the most important African platforms dedicated to the mining, quarrying and hydrocarbon sectors, bringing together decision makers, investors and experts from more than 45 countries and providing a large platform for exhibitions, conferences and meetings aimed at exploring investment opportunities, building strategic partnerships and discussing the future challenges facing the sector by 2030, thereby promoting sustainable development in Chad and Africa.
The Minister, or Mr. Arqab, also received today a delegation from the Omani Suhail Bahwan Holding Group, headed by its chairman Sheikh Saad Suhail Bahwan. During the meeting, the two sides discussed prospects for expanding the group's investments in Algeria, particularly in the fertilizer industry. During the meeting, the two sides reviewed the existing cooperation and partnership between Sonatrach and Suhail Bahwan Holding Group and ways to strengthen and expand it, especially in the hydrocarbons and petrochemical sectors, with a focus on fertilizer production projects such as ammonia. The meeting also provided an opportunity to explore investment opportunities available in Algeria, particularly in the hydrocarbons and mining sectors. At the end of the meeting, both sides reaffirmed their shared commitment to enhancing economic cooperation between Algeria and the Sultanate of Oman, especially by strengthening the existing partnership between Sonatrach and the Omani Group. The Minister of Environment and Quality of Life, Kautar Kirikou, has officially inaugurated the western province of El Bayad, along with the Qatari Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Abdullah bin Abdulaziz bin Turki Al Subay, the Qatari Hubara, or Bastard Breeding Center. A statement from the ministry said that the center, inaugurated on Monday in the presence of the Governor of El Bayad, the Director General of the Forestry Department and local authorities, aims to preserve the Hubara, which is a protected bird species. Ms. Kirikou highlighted Algeria-Qatar cooperation in environmental education and biodiversity, while the Qatari minister supported projects against desertification following Algeria's praised Green Dam experience.
كان فيه عرض مفصل لنشاطات قطاع البيئة والسبل.
There was a detailed presentation on the activities of the environment sector and ways of cooperation between the two countries in this field. Of course, preparations are underway to sign a memorandum of understanding between the two countries in this area in the field of environmental education and biodiversity. And he also made a stop at the environmental memory exhibition. He was very impressed both with the progress of this file, and there was also an agreement to support environmental projects, notably in combating desertification, particularly since Algeria secured the adoption of a resolution by the Arab League which praised Algeria's experience with the Green Dam and commended it, calling for its generalization at the Arab level.
The preservation of this species is achieved through specialized scientific breeding and reintroduction programs, contributing to the protection of biodiversity and supporting sustainable development efforts as part of the strengthening of environmental cooperation between Algeria and Qatar. The president of the France-Algeria Association and former French presidential candidate in 2007, Ségolène Royal, has called for the recognition of French colonial crimes as a first step towards resolving the crisis between the two countries. More with Masoud Sharfi.
Speaking at an event organized by her association under the theme Tomorrow, France and Algeria, held recently at the Institute of International and Strategic Relations, IRIS, in Paris, the leading figure of the French Socialist Party suggested a three-point plan to turn the page on the heavy historical dispute between France and Algeria. She first called for the recognition of colonial crimes, reparations and apologies from the French state.
La mémoire des violences coloniales n'est pas un calcul ou un intérêt.
The memory of colonial violence is not a calculation or an interest. It is a right to recognition of established and documented facts. Certain wounds, the crimes of colonization, have not been fully acknowledged, repaired or apologized for. Well, they must be by France. The first of these reparations and the first of these apologies is the restitution of cultural property and archives. I am certain that the relationship between Algeria and France can become creative and exciting with the cooperation of businesses. A winning relationship, an energetic relationship, a voluntary relationship on both banks.
The president of the AFA has committed herself to doing everything she can to help France and Algeria move forward on such difficult issue of memory, distancing herself from the concept of memorial rent dear to French President Emmanuel Macron. She believes that it is a convenient way to legitimize the voices of those wounded by history. To address the issue of memory, Royal also called for the restitution of property belonging to Algeria, which it has been demanding for several years, as well as the handover of archives on French nuclear tests in Algeria in the 1960s and the treatment of their consequences on humans and the environment. Ségolène Royal's statement comes as the upper house of the Algerian parliament prepares to adapt a draft law criminalizing French colonialism from 1830 to 1962. The draft law was already adopted by the National People's Assembly at the end of December.
The Vice Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Mr. Mohamed Anwar Bouchouit, has taken part in a video conference meeting of the African Geopolitical Group of the Inter-Parliamentary Union. The meeting focused on consultations launched by the Union with a view to developing its new strategic for the period 2027-2031. Addressing the meeting, the Vice Speaker highlighted the Assembly's experience, which relied on the Inter-Parliamentary Union's recommendations after launching two parliamentary networks decided to young people and the climate. In addition to its efforts to strengthen the position of women within its bodies and structures, he stated that certain gaps have been identified, particularly those related to just causes, the persistence of double standards in politics, and differences in vision between geopolitical groups, expressing the hope that the Inter-Parliamentary Union's next strategic vision would be unified, taking into account the differences between its member states and promoting cooperation. Now to the Middle East. The Palestinian Non-Governmental Organizations Network has condemned the incursion carried out today by the Israeli occupying forces into the UNRWA headquarters in occupied Jerusalem, rejecting such action as an attempt to suppress the refugee right to return. It was quoted by the news agency Wafa as saying that the demolition operation, incursion, and show of strength are taking place amid a context marked by the Israeli attempts to liquidate UNRWA's work and annihilating the refugees' right as provided for by UN Resolution 194. In this respect, the Palestinian Organizations Network called for an international action to be undertaken immediately to put an end to such crimes and to take concrete measures to thwart such occupation actions. Still in the Middle East, the humanitarian crisis in Yemen is likely to worsen in 2026 due to persistent food insecurity and reduced funding. The UN Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator for Yemen, Julien Arnay, has warned that the situation is very, very worrying, saying that the organization expects the situation to worsen further in 2026.
Now, the context in Yemen is very, very concerning, humanitarian-wise. We have last year we had 19.5 million people in need, and the humanitarian response plan was only 28% financed. We are expecting things to be much worse in 2026. Why? Well, the way that economic and political decisions are playing out, the situation of the food insecurity is only getting worse across all parts of the country, but particularly on the Tihama along the Red Sea. We're seeing that playing out into malnutrition.
Last year, 19.5 million people in the country needed humanitarian aid out of a population of nearly 40 million, while the UN response plan was only 28% funded. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Now to the African continent. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, has called on regional actors to take action to bring an end to the conflict in Sudan, stressing the need to place human rights at the heart of peace efforts. Mr. Sharfi has the details in this report.
During his 5-day visit to Sudan, Mr. Turk said he witnessed extreme atrocities against the population, saw the resilience of the Sudanese people, and met young people supporting their communities despite the risks of arrest and violence. The infrastructure in Sudan has been repeatedly targeted by drone attacks by the Rapid Paramilitary Support Forces (RSF) in recent weeks, which constitutes serious violations and could amount to war crimes. In his connection, the Deputy Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court (ICC), Nazat Shamin Khan, reported that the RSF in Sudan have committed massacres in Darfur and are attempting to conceal the victims in mass graves. Briefing the United Nations Security Council, Nazat Shamin Khan stated that according to the assessment of the Office of the Prosecutor, war crimes and crimes against humanity were committed during the RSF's takeover of the city of Al Fasher in Darfur in October. The Fijian prosecutor said that an ongoing investigation by the International Judicial Body had revealed massacres and attempts to conceal crimes through mass graves, documenting an organized and calculated campaign by the RSF. Adding that images analyzed by the ICC showed the RSF celebrating summary executions and desecrating bodies. She stated that the emerging picture was horrifying and recalled the atrocities documented in El Geneina, the capital of West Darfur, where the ICC accuses the RSF of killing up to 15,000 civilians, warning that such violence would continue unless the sense of impunity was halted, and noting that residents in Darfur are subjected to collective torture. Nearly 3 years of conflict have left several tens of thousands dead and displaced more than 13 million people in Sudan, triggering the worst humanitarian crisis in the world, according to the United Nations.
The UN Security Council was due to hold consultations behind closed doors today on the situation in South Sudan, during which the Under-Secretary General for Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, will brief on the issue. Mr. Sharfi again.
The Undersecretary General should address the latest developments regarding the emergency plan for the United Nations mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, which is being implemented in response to the financial crisis affecting the United Nations and the austerity measures adopted by the Secretary General, requiring all peacekeeping missions to reduce their expenditures by 15%. His briefing should also cover his recent visit to Juba, the country's capital, where he updated senior government officials and UNMISS civilian and military personnel on the implementation of the emergency plan, and given the security situation, will urge the parties to adhere to the ceasefire, exercise maximum restraint, enhance civilian protection, and work collectively for lasting peace and stability in South Sudan. Earlier, UNMISS called for an immediate halt to the hostilities in Jonglei and Eastern Equatoria, urging leaders to honor the 2018 peace agreement through dialogue, reconciliation, and de-escalation, stressing that strong consensus-based leadership is needed to prevent the crisis from worsening. The agreement signed by President Salva Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar includes a permanent ceasefire, a unity government, an institutional restructuring, concluding with the December 2026 presidential election. In the same regard, the United Nations Human Rights Committee in South Sudan expressed concern over the deteriorating security situation in the country, calling for an immediate de-escalation, a halt to hostilities, a return to the pathways of the peace agreement and its commitments and guarantees. The Human Rights Committee in South Sudan is an independent body mandated by the United Nations Human Rights Council, established in March 2016, and an annually renewed mandate and members appointed by the Council's president.
Spain is observing 3 days of national mourning starting on Tuesday following the train accident that killed at least 41 people last weekend in the south of the country. Mariam Barshi.
The Andalusian regional government said in a statement that the death toll has risen to 41 after the recovery of the body of a person from one of the carriages of the aerial train, adding that 39 people, including 4 children, remain hospitalized. Transport Minister Oscar Puente confirmed the figure of 41 deaths at this stage in an interview with Spanish radio station Onda Cero. At the scene of the accident, the search continues in the wreckage of 2 trains, some of which have been reduced to piles of scrap metal, raising fears that the death toll could rise. The authorities have already warned that the toll from the tragedy could still increase as rescue teams are still searching for bodies that may be trapped in the trains. The public body in charge of monitoring the disaster said that the authorities had received 43 reports of missing persons from relatives of victims. 5 people have already been identified as dead during autopsies. Discussions are now focusing on the causes of the extremely strange accident, as the Transport Minister Oscar Puente put it.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Next is our weekly program, The Health Magazine.